To the When at Work podcast. You're with your host, Julian Lee here. And today I'm joined by the fantastic Bekah George from Orlando, Florida, via Indiana. Welcome to the show, Bekah.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, Bekah has a bit of a story, which I thought was a really cool story. And Bekah used to be a little bit chunky, 310 pounds. Tell us a bit about that. What led you to putting on so much weight, and then what happened? How did you lose that much weight without cheating?
Yeah, so I always say chunky out the womb. So I came out big. I think I remember getting made fun of in kindergarten for being big. I've just always been big. I think I went to my first like Weight Watchers type of thing when I was like 9, maybe. I just have always been big. And then I had an accident in middle school that where I had to be on crutches, and so ended up gaining a little bit more weight, and then had a baby, gained a little bit more weight. And so then I ended up being 310 pounds. So actually at my biggest, I was 330. So I've actually lost 130 pounds from my biggest size. I just have lost 110 of that in the last year. So I ended up, being 330 pounds, which was the biggest. And that was kind of my wake up call when I was like, this is not okay.
Yeah, and how did you feel when you were that heavy?
I felt awful. I mean, I had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt about being that big. I hated going on airplanes. I never went to roller coasters with my daughter. I would never go to the beach. I would never go inside the pool. I would never get in a bathing suit. I still haven't worn shorts since I was 10. That's one of my goals, is to be able to feel confident enough to wear shorts. I haven't worn shorts since I was in elementary school. So just a lot of like, not living life because of the way that I looked and because of how I felt, as well as not being able to like get down and do things with my toddler when she was little, and not being able to physically do as much as my peers.
Yeah, and then how did you just break out the habit of how did you start making progress on that?
Yeah, so honestly, I had to start doing some inner healing because I had a lot of food addiction and a lot of sadness that had turned into an obsession with food. And so I always had this joke where I'd say like, "Oh, I'm going to eat some cake. At least it's not meth, or at least it's not heroin," right? So like I had convinced myself that it was better than drugs, when really it was killing me just the same. And so, I really had to start looking at myself to say, why am I looking at food as a comfort instead of food as a way to fuel my body? And I had gotten out of a really bad abusive relationship 2 years ago when I moved to Florida. And it was absolutely terrible. And that's when I kind of realized that, I started just eating more and more and more. And, I had to really look inside and say, why am I using this as such a crutch? And then I also just realized that I was carrying around the extra weight as a symptom of my pain and trauma from as a kid. So as a therapist, I know a lot of stuff about trauma, right? Obviously, I specialize in trauma, but I had never done the work myself to realize that I was carrying around all this weight because I was so hurt, and I hadn't dealt with a lot of my trauma from childhood and then early adolescence and early 20s. So I started going to therapy. I started having to like do a lot of just looking in the mirror metaphorically more than physically.
Yeah, the trauma is a tough one. A lot of people carry that, and it's one of those things where you go along and yeah, I'm fine, and it just sneaks up on you, and it seems
Mhm.
to be the longer you go, the older you get. It's chasing you, and it catches up with you, and you either deal with it or you flip out and drink alcohol and eat too much and all that.
Right.
So you realized that was a key part of it, and how long did that take you before you started feeling good mentally?
Yeah, so it took me a little while. It took me a few months to start really doing the work fully, and recognizing that I could be that person. So honestly, like our subconscious tries to keep us where we are safe and where we know, right? And so my subconscious was trying to keep me in a place of being fat because that's what I knew and that was what was comfortable for me. So for a long time, I would tell myself, I can't be a healthy person. And my goal, honestly, was just to get under 250 pounds because that's all that I thought I could do. I thought that would be a miracle. I was like, if I could just get under 250, I would be happy. And so it took me several months to start really like doing the work to recognize if I want to be that person, I have to start showing up as that person now, even if I'm not there yet. And so, I had to do the work to say, what does a fit person do? And that's what I would do. I'd wake up every day and I'd say, if I was fit already, what would I do? Would I eat this cake or would I eat this apple? Right? Like, would I believe in myself to go for the extra walk and just walk a little extra? Or would I, try to take the lazy way out? And so really it was about showing up as future me, even though I was still fat me.
Yeah, awesome. And then and that sort of took a while, and that was sort of coinciding with the therapy. So probably a good idea, actually, if you're looking to lose weight, is to have therapy at the same time. And were you already a therapist at this time when you were going?
I was, yes. I've been a therapist for 15 years almost. So I've been a therapist for a long time. I just didn't want to do the work on myself because I honestly thought that this food addiction was too big of an issue for me to handle. Because I thought, not only is it food addiction, I also made a lot of excuses. It's genetics. There's several people in my family that are overweight. I told myself, like, I've been big since I was little. So obviously it's not just the way that I eat, right? I would make those kind of excuses for myself. And so I just never would do the work that it took in order to really get there. But obviously there was a big piece of just mental work that needed to be done.
Definitely. And with your coaching business, how long have you had that where you're coaching by yourself?
Yeah, so I just started my coaching business about a year and a half ago. Prior to that, I was just doing therapy. But the thing with therapy is that it's very limited in what I can do. So therapy tells me that I can only see clients in the state that I'm licensed in, right? It also, a lot of times, if they're, going through insurance or, something like that, then they tell me how many times I can see the client. They tell me what I can and can't do. And I just didn't feel like I was serving enough people as a therapist, right? There's also a lot of, liability and things like that, and just a lot of rules. So like after I stop seeing a client, I can never have any kind of relationship with them again. Whereas when I coach, I can check in with them and see how they're doing and still have a relationship in the future, right? And coaching, I can coach anyone all over the country and the world, instead of just the little place that I'm licensed in. And so I can use the tools that I have as a therapist to create a coaching company. And that's what I realized that I could do. And so that's why I started learning to coach. Also, therapy keeps people stuck sometimes. So therapy is great. Obviously, I'm a really big believer in therapy, but sometimes we end up going backwards for too long and we don't move forward. And so with therapy, a lot of times we go backwards and we deal with the trauma in the past. But I saw people getting stuck and they didn't want to move forward. And coaching is a lot of solution focused, moving forward. How do we get you from where you are right now to where you want to be? And that's what really made me light up. So that's when I fell in love with coaching. It's about a year and a half ago.
Awesome. And tell us about the workshops that you've got coming up.
Yeah, so I'm going to be doing a workshop about freeing yourself from anxiety. So teaching about really practical skills of how to get out of the anxious loops that we create, right? So a lot of us have anxiety. A lot of us have struggled with that. And so really just teaching about how to have healthy coping skills, how to communicate our needs, and how to identify what anxiety even looks like. And so that's going to be the first one that we're doing. And then the second one is actually going to be for survivors of narcissistic abuse. So I told you that I, had gotten out of that relationship 2 years ago, and he was, a narcissist. And so for me, it was very impactful and made me realize how much trauma came out of that relationship. And so it really got me studying all about it. I learned some of it in grad school, but nothing like, I did in this extra study time that I've spent in the last year learning all about narcissistic abuse. So I'm going to be teaching about how to overcome it if you're in the middle of a situation or if you're out, and how to heal from it. And then also how to make sure that you never get back into a situation like that again.
Yeah, being around narcissists is one of those things. They just swallow you up, and they you just need to get away. And there's so many people that have that, whether it's a parent and then maybe they're younger or in a relationship, and it's so difficult to get out. And it really seems like you just have to end that relationship and just get away, because they never change, do they?
No, they don't. And it really is, it can be really terrifying. And I think that the saddest thing is that they have a tendency of choosing empathic, loving people because we are, sweet and we're givers, right? And takers are attracted to givers. And so that's what's really hard, is that people who are empaths and people who are, caring and loving, they want to care and love and nurture others. And so then they find someone who's a predator, or the predator finds them, and they give them the benefit of the doubt for way too long. And then by then the fangs are already in them.
And when is the workshop coming up?
Yeah, so I am hoping to have both of them launched by October 1st. So if you follow my social media, follow me on my website as well, you'll see any of those updates. Specifically social media, I'll be keeping updated on when it starts. And so hopefully in the next month, I will be starting that live training.
Okay, yeah, so I've put the website up there, and you can subscribe to Bekah's website, and I'm sure you'll get an email about when that's coming on.
Yes.
And yeah, that's great. There's some good stories there. It's a good story that you've got, and I think a lot of people will identify with you, particularly like being affected by narcissists, and also having anxiety, and also the weight loss thing. So I think you can help a lot of people, and hopefully some people will come and have a look at what you're doing. So I'd like to thank you for coming on, Bekah.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No worries. And I'm going to wrap it up short and sweet. And thanks for listening and watching. And I'll see you very soon on another episode.